Okay, now that I've got everybody here, first thing I want to do is I want to introduce myself. My name is John Bryan. I am one of the founding members of CPO. I've been doing this for at least 5.5 years, going on 6. We have a great time doing it. We've enjoyed doing the tour over the years. And one of the things that I always tell people is, if there's anybody out there who went on our very first tour and has gone all 4 years that we've done it, you've noticed the tour has evolved. And the reason why is because of the people that go on, we always take in consideration your comments. And so every year we change it up just a little bit to where this year I believe that this is definitely the best tour we've ever done. Been incredibly successful, and we thank you guys for supporting us. So we're gonna go into this building. First thing I wanna say is we're gonna go down a flight of stairs. They're not very long, but they are steep. So be careful, do not fall. If you need assistance, just let one of us know and we'll help you down. And just something quick about the night that we investigated here. So we had 3 types of groups. We had groups of just men, we had groups that had both male and female, and then we had a group of just females. The first 2 groups were just fine. They had a great time, didn't really catch anything or experience anything. But without fail, whenever we sent a group of females by themselves in this building, they felt incredibly threatened. They felt like something was angry and something wanted to get at them. So, in all of our time that we've been doing this, I've never run into anything I would consider to be evil or anything like that. The girls, on the other hand, do believe that there is something malevolent in the basement and that it does not like women. But we're in a mixed group here, so we should be just fine. So come on in and we'll meet in the basement.
You okay?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just thinking of it steep going down.
More good than that. There's some help. We're kidding, huh? These are steep. It is
Okay, so now that everybody's down here, I want to welcome you to, I'm going to call this building the Amerigo warehouse. The reason why is because Amerigo does currently own this building. They don't use it unless they absolutely have to, but they're the ones who own it. First, quick history on it. This building was built in 1914, and it is the original ZCMIs. That's what it originally was built for. After ZCMI left, then a fruit company came in, and so it was, a fruit company was in here for a while. After that, more creameries came in. They did kind of the same things they did across the street. And finally, in 1947, I believe, a freight company bought the building, and it's been used for that ever since. Kind of a freight storage type building. Again, back to our investigation, one of the things that we, you know, when I was down here personally, I never had an experience here. I came down with both male groups and mixed groups, and we never had any issue down here. In fact, we kind of liked it down here. It was cold. We did the investigation during the winter, so we had to wear coats and you can see your breath, but it was a good time. Now, when we sent the females down here, the story was very different. And we'll talk a little bit about what they experienced and maybe some of the possible, sorry, probably in case, some of the different reasons that they may have had the experience that they did. Number one, this building also has some pretty cool features to it. It has 2 original entrances into the tunnels. So the first one is this one right here. This door today, if you notice, the nails are coming inwards, and so they boarded it up from the outside, and then it is covered in dirt all the way up to the top of the door. And they did that because they wanted to make sure nobody could go down into the tunnels that are underneath this building. The people that remember this door before it was closed, they remember that you could go out this door and walk down some stairs and then go right into the tunnels. So that is one of the entrances today. There is a second entrance, and we'll talk about that one a little bit later.
What were the tunnels for?
The tunnels originated in two different ways. Number one, the Chinese started the tunnels because in those days, turn of the century, they were not allowed to walk on streets. And so in order to get around, they had to dig tunnels to get around. Second expansion of the tunnels was World War II. Government used the tunnels as bomb shelters and as ways to, get the population away from, in case there was an attack on the city. So those were the two major expansions of the tunnels. So back to our investigation, when the females came down here again, they felt threatened, they felt like there was something angry against them, something that wanted to get them. Lisa, in particular, had an experience in that she felt that beyond a evil presence or something that was angry and wanted to get them, there was a second presence, maybe the presence of a young girl. And she said that as the females were down here, unknowingly, they would form circles, and like they were surrounding something. And then she'd look around and notice they were in a perfect circle. Well, as time came to leave, she felt like they were leaving somebody behind. Now, if you get to know Lisa, Lisa, number one, is a mother and a teacher. So she is incredibly protective of children. As she was leaving, she had this sense of sadness that she was leaving someone behind. And so as they went up the stairs, she had this really emotional experience. Well, we talked about it later on, and then we checked the evidence, and we came up with this. Now, one thing is, if you are a member of our Facebook page, I have posted this before because I didn't know we were going to tour here. But it's a great piece of evidence. It's not very long, so what it's going to do is it's going to repeat 3 times. But I do that because I want you guys to experience it, hear what we hear, and then we'll talk just a little bit once we're done.
How long have you been here? How long have you been here? How long have you been here?
Okay, so as Lisa's investigating, actually in this area right here, she asked the question, how long have you been here? And there is an audible response of what I believe to be a young girl, and she says, I've always been here. And one thing I'll mention is that when we do our investigations, we always keep track of everyone who is in the group. In fact, when we begin the recordings, we say, we're in this place, this is who's here. We do not whisper on our investigations, we talk in a loud voice, so that if these anomalies appear on our recordings, we can identify them as such. And so I do believe that this is a 100% valid EVP that we caught right in this space here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move on over to another spot. But first, one of the things we're doing on the tour this year is we're covering our equipment, because people are always asking, what kind of equipment do you use? This is the first piece of equipment that I'm going to talk about. This is what you call a full spectrum camera, and this is a really bright light, so I don't want to blind you. But what this light does, is if you can see, it has red lights, green lights, blue lights, violet lights, and so this light emits like 4 different types. If you notice, the top and bottom lights don't look like they're on, but they are. It's just they emit a type of light you cannot see with your eyes. And what this camera does is it takes that light that we cannot see and it turns it into a visible light or a visible picture that we can record. So this camera has kind of a pinkish tint to it. And I really have been impressed with it so far. We've only had it for about 6 months. But I definitely am going to use this in the future, and it's a good piece of equipment. So what we're going to do now real quick, we're going to just head right into this room right here. Come on in. Everybody come on in. Okay, now we've got everybody here. One thing I do want to point out that's kind of obvious is a few years ago they had a spook alley in this basement. And so the little blood splatters you see kind of over the place are the remnants of that spook alley. It's not anything we did for the tour, it was just them. But I want to talk about an interesting fact of Pocatello. So, turn of the century, Pocatello is growing very rapidly, and it's because of the railroad. The railroad is bringing in all kinds of people. So you have the people working on the railroad, the people building the railroad, such as the Chinese. You have other types of immigrants coming to Pocatello, and you have a lot of transients coming to Pocatello, riding the rails. So as Pocatello is in this period of expansion, they decided to build a hospital. The very first hospital in Pocatello is located on Center Street. And what you do is you take Center Street, you go into the older part of town, and there's a business over there called Del Monte Meats that's very well known. Across the street from Del Monte Meats is a large building kind of on a hill. And today there's different offices and companies in that building. That is the original hospital for Pocatello. Now, as Pocatello is growing, that hospital becomes too small quickly. And one of the smallest parts of that hospital is their morgue. Unfortunately, their morgue can only handle a couple of people at a time. But as Pocatello is growing, people are passing away for whatever reason, and that morgue fills up. So when that morgue can't take anymore, they would bring the bodies to this room right here. So for many years, this was the overflow morgue for Pocatello. And that kind of brings us to the stories that we're going to talk about this basement, and maybe some of the things that are down here. If you noticed, many of the rooms down here do not have doors on them. And the reason why is because the Amerigo workers took them off. Because the story goes that when they'd come down here and be working, all of a sudden those doors would be opening and closing and slamming all the time on them. So they didn't like that. They took off the doors to try to get it to stop. The second thing that they reported in the basement is as they were working in this area here, they would look down towards that door and they would see a figure walk around the corner and stand down by that table. But this figure was very particular and very unique because of the clothing that he wore. He wears a 18th century European medical garb. And what it is they're long, white, flowing type robes, but the thing that is unmistakable about it is that they have a hood on, but this hood has a long white beak. And what that long white beak was for is, back in those days, the doctors believed that that beak would filter the air from the pathogens of the people they were working on. So they'd be working right here, and all of a sudden they'd look over, and this guy in this garb would walk around that corner, and of course they would leave because they're not going to hang around for that. So that brings us to the story of the doctor. And again, these are unsubstantiated stories, but they're the ones that we've been told, so I'm going to share them with you. They believe that the doctor may have had something to do with the morgue, and that for whatever reason he was luring people from First Street down into this basement. Now, was he performing experimental surgeries, or was he just a serial killer? Nobody knows. But there's a remnant in this room that they believe shows that whatever may have happened was real. And what it is this mark right here, this mark here, and this mark here. Now, these are not things left over from the spook alley. These marks have been there since the people that own the building bought it. And what they believe is that they are handprints. Now, they have tried and tried to get rid of them. They've scrubbed them, they've put acid on them, they've even got them to go away for a period of time. But they keep on coming back. And so they just stop trying to get rid of them. Now, as the story goes, and again, these are just stories, but they believe that these are the bloody handprints of the victims of the doctor for whatever he did in this room a long time ago. So what I'm going to do now very quickly is I'm going to talk about another piece of equipment. To be honest, I'm not a huge fan of this one, but it's one that a lot of TV shows use, so we decided to buy one and try it out. This is called a spirit box. And if any of you watch, I think Ghost Adventures, they use it quite a bit. And what it is a simple box. It's a radio, but the only thing that's different about it is that it has a button that I can control. That's kind of weird, it's not supposed to do that. Anyways, it has a button on it that allows me to, well, it's supposed to pan through the channels. I'll just turn it off. Anyways, it's supposed to pan through the channels, and over time you're supposed to be able to communicate with spirits with it. Now obviously it is a radio, it's panning the radio stations, so you're going to get bits and fragments of voices on it. So that's why I'm not such a huge fan of it. But some people really believe in it, they really like it, so maybe next year at this time, when I've had more opportunity to use it, I'll have a different story. So right now we're going to walk down through that door, we're going to turn the corner and head to the other side of the building. So one thing I'm going to point out is very obvious is there was a fire down here in the 1980s, and what happened was at that time AMI was using this building as a storage facility. And they had a stack of pallets right here and they caught on fire and they burnt the ceiling obviously. After the fire, they got it out quick, but it did do some damage. That's when they put in all of these support beams. So I guess there was an inspection and said that they were still good enough to keep. It hasn't caved in yet, so let's hope it doesn't cave in right now. But I'm sure it's fine. So let's go back to our investigation. There was one anomaly that the Mells captured when they were down here. We had invited a friend on our investigation, and what he does for a living is he does inspections of buildings, structural inspections. And one of the things that he uses for his inspections is he uses what is called a thermal camera. And we liked it so much, the group actually saved up their pennies and we went out and bought our own. So this is what you call a Fluor i3 thermal camera. And generally, my favorite use of these is usually on shows like Cops. You know, some guys, they're chasing in the middle of the night, he jumps out of his car, starts running through a field, but they have a helicopter and they have a thermal cam on him. So you see him running through the field and falling down and all that. So that's what this camera does. It uses heat to create its picture. So what I'll do is I'll just turn that real quick if you can see. Whoa. You know, it makes a cool picture, but again, it's using heat to create that picture. And we use this to detect anomalies in heat. Well, on the night of the tour, we caught such an anomaly. Our friend was here and he was taking pictures of these walls, and again, it was the winter, so these walls were right at about 40 degrees, except for when he took a picture of these bricks right here. Those bricks that are inside this doorway, they were at 70 degrees. So we had no explanation for why these bricks were at 70 and the walls were at 40 degrees. So we began to think about it and talk about it, and we came up with a theory. This is actually the second entrance into the tunnels under Pocatello. But what from we understand is that this is a direct entrance. So if we were able to knock down those bricks, we could go right into them. Now, why would those bricks be 70 degrees? Well, again, it was during the winter. And where is the other place in this area that we know has tunnels is Idaho State. And what does Idaho State do with their tunnels in the winter? They put steam in them so that they do not have to plow their sidewalks. So the idea that we had was that maybe the steam was coming all the way down here and warming up those bricks. So what my point is that if we could knock down those bricks, we could go into the tunnel and go all the way to Idaho State. And the last time I checked, Seattle does an excellent job with their tunnels. There's a couple other cities around, one in Wyoming. In my opinion, I think Pocatello should do the same, because I think it would be a great attraction. It's part of our history, and it's a great way to get people to come visit our town. So now what we're going to do is we're going to walk down to the other room at the end of the hall. There is a drain, so please don't trip on it, but we'll meet right in that room. Okay, so now that I've got everybody in here, I just want to quickly end the building in this room because it's a special one. And the one thing I want to tell people is, number one, believe, don't believe, that's up to you. Everybody, can make up their mind if they believe in the paranormal or not. But the people that work in these buildings truly believe there is something in these buildings. And it's very real for them. It's something that they deal with every day they come to work. And in this room, they believe that there's actually a symbol that there is something in this basement, something that they deal with. And what they call it is they call it the face of the devil. And what it is this mark right here on top of this wall. Now, this is, again, a mark similar to the handprints where they have tried and tried and tried to get rid of this mark. But they've scrubbed it off, they've got it off with acid, and they even painted over this with paint. But it keeps on coming back for whatever reason. There is nothing on the other side of that wall that will cause that, so it's an anomaly. Is it a sign? I don't know. I couldn't really give an opinion on that. But it is something strange that happens in this basement, and nobody has a good explanation for it. So if you guys want to just, again, quickly take just a couple minutes, if you want to walk around and look something, go right on ahead. If you've got any questions, we'll be out here in the hall. But let's, I hope you guys enjoy this building. The next building's really cool too. And we'll be out here if you got any questions. So walk around, take a look, and then we'll move on to our next building.
Let me go outside and film her. She got scratched on the